Britain is running out of gas at an alarming rate. It is facing its greatest ever energy crisis. The solution lies 1,200 kilometers away, deep beneath the Norwegian Sea, where 300 billion cubic meters of gas have been discovered. Over 5,000 men are locked in a race against time to release the gas, construct a refinery, and send it to the UK along the world's biggest ever underwater pipeline. Named after a Viking ship, the Ormen Lange gas field will supply the UK's energy needs for years to come. The gas will be pumped from the ocean floor to Nyhammer on the Norwegian coast before travelling 1,200 kilometres to Easington in England. There is, however, a slight problem. There is no pipe. To lay it will take something very special, the LB200. Inside, 370 men are working round the clock, heading northwards towards the gas field at a speed of 4 kilometers a day.
It's a floating factory, basically. It's a large assembly line. It's a repetitive motion time and time again of putting the pipes together, welding them together to make one long assembly from point A to point B. It's going to pump gas from Nyhammer, Norway to Easington, UK.
"900 kilometers away, the most crucial component of the whole operation is starting its slow journey to the gas field. The template is an extraordinary piece of bright yellow engineering that is the key to releasing the gas. This giant tap will control the flow of the gas to the process plant in Norway. It also acts as a guide for the drilling apparatus.
The template is really the heart of the subsea production system. That's where the gas comes up, it's gathered there and it's sent to shore. And without the template, we won't have any gas to shore. It's really the key element of the whole production system.
Getting the template to the site is one thing. Getting it to its final resting place needs a monster. Enter the Dutch heavy-lifting barge, the TORLEIF. 71,000 tons of immense ocean-going lifting power that costs a staggering $500,000 a day to hire.
It's the biggest crane barge in the world. Size roughly 200 meters long and 95 meters wide. And from deck to keel, it's 52 meters high. And if you take the boom up from the cranes up to the keel, you are more or less 200 meters.
The biggest block of the crane can lift 7.1 million kilograms, which is 7,100 tons. If you want an easier figure to compare, then it's more or less 7,000 cars each crane. So we have 2 of those huge cranes, and they can lift together 14,000 cars.
You would wonder why you should need 2 times 7,000 tons of lifting capacity to lift templates of 1,150 tons. The reason is that the combination of weight and depth is actually exceeding the standard setup of this vessel.
The template installation will be tricky because the target zone is a kilometer beneath the surface in total darkness. It will take several hours to lower it to the seabed. The TORLEIF then has to maneuver the template into an exact position above the gas field, where it will be secured to the ocean floor. But at such depths and in often wild conditions above and below the surface, hitting the target is like trying to find a pin at the bottom of a swimming pool while wearing a blindfold. First, the TORLEIF needs to be set for the lift. To reach the bottom of the ocean, over 6 kilometers of brand new cable has to be threaded onto each crane at a cost of $1 million. By looping the wire around the pulleys just 6 times instead of the usual 40, they will sacrifice lifting power, but will gain the depth needed. This is the first time that anything like this has ever been attempted.
At present we reefed already one of our cranes, which is our portside crane. The block is at present at the depth which we require for installing the Ormen Lange structures. Today we are reefing the starboard crane.
With a few more hours' careful preparation, the TORLEIF should be ready for the lift. If all goes to plan, they will attempt the lowering within the next 12 hours.
The situation is really that everything has to go right the first time. And that's the special aspect of operations like this. We can't compromise. When we lift it off, it's a point of no return. So I'm looking a lot forward to the coming days.
But with conditions turning nasty, will they attempt to lift the template? If they don't go ahead, it will be very costly. Crucial decisions have to be made. Bad weather is playing havoc at the gas field. To attempt a lowering of the template now would just be too dangerous. Several hundred kilometers south, conditions are still good. The LB200 is on schedule, slowly but surely heading northwards towards the template. In charge is Jimmy Peacock. He's been in the business for over 21 years. He has laid thousands of kilometers of pipe, but this is special.
They're 12 meters long or 40 feet, whichever you prefer. It's 23 mil or 1 inch thick, or almost 1 inch thick. It's 44 inches in diameter, which is a large piece of pipe. It's also got roughly 6 mil of masticoat and then 80 mil of concrete. The concrete coat is what is used to keep the pipeline sitting on the bottom so it doesn't float to the surface. All that added together, which makes up to about 20 to 21 tons.
The finished pipeline will need 1 million tons of steel and 1 million tons of concrete. The 124,000 pipes required are shipped to the LB200 continuously.
The southern section, which we're laying this year, is 528 kilometers long. We're trying to lay a minimum of 3.5 to 4.5 kilometers of pipe today to keep a steady stream. That way we can meet the deadlines before the end of the season.
Below deck, 370 men are working flat out round the clock, welding on a new piece of pipe every 6 minutes.
Right now where we're standing is on the main deck, starboard side of the LB200. This is the area where we offload the pipe from the pipe carriers onto the deck, store them here in the storage racks until they're put into the beveling stations, beveled with the end preps for your mainline welding and your DJ welding.
That's known as a PFM, pipe facing machine. It's actually puts a bevel onto the pipe to enable us to weld it.
Two of the 12-meter links are welded together to make one 24-meter length. This is what we call a double joint. From there it goes inside into the main line. That's what we feed the firing line with. We've got stations 1 through 8. 1 through 4 we do all the welding to put the pipes together to make them one continuous line.
They call it Saturn. The planet, you know, all the planets, the galaxies going around the sun, and this machine is going around the pipe. That makes the job more safe, faster, and easier.
What I'm doing here is a visual inspection of this weld, just making sure there isn't any surface defects. This is a good weld. I'm quite happy with it to go through for NDT.
Station 5 is where they do the scan of each weld to make sure there's no defects. Station 6 is where they put the SUBMARINE heat shrink sleeve, which seals from any water being able to get to the bare metal on the pipe. And then it goes to stations 7 and 8, where we put a foam infill to protect it from any trawl boards and give it a smooth surface on the bottom.
9 meter ahead power.
And lay it on the seabed. We've had an exceptional day just last week. We laid 5.3 kilometers in a 24-hour period, which amounts to 216 double joints welded together in a 24-hour period, which is exceptionally well in the offshore industry.
To meet the deadline, the LB200 is up against it. The bad weather hampering the template lift is on its way south and could bring pipe laying to a standstill. Jimmy and his crew are facing a grueling schedule and an unforgiving seabed. In the waters around the gas field, the seafloor is like a lunar landscape, the result of a giant underwater landslide 8,000 years ago. It's horrendous terrain for pipe laying, but to make things worse, they have come upon a sheer cliff, 200 meters high.
Normally offshore jobs, the seabed is fairly flat. So it's actually Ormen Lange which is so special, so it required special solutions.
And that solution is the Spider, an all-terrain underwater excavator. It's been specially designed to cut trenches through the most hostile of seabeds. With the underwater cliff standing between the pipe and the template, the Spider is readied for action.
The idea came from a Swiss Forester machine, which is an extreme machine to work in 30 to 40 degrees slopes, like a climbing machine. And we adopted that technology to actually use it underwater. These legs can be moved to adapt and actually level the machine and work like normal.
The Spider operates at over 800 meters, a depth that no man can survive in, and that no man has ever seen with his own eyes. It's controlled by HALVOR SNELLINGEN, who relies on computer images to remotely operate the underwater path clearer.
This screen here shows the Spider sitting on the seabed. So when we sit down on the seabed, we level up the machine so it's level when we are doing the work. We then dig the claws into the seabed so we don't slide. And then we just start the high power pumps and we cut up the soil and we suck it out. We don't actually dig it. We have a very accurate positioning system. During the operation, the visibility is, well, basically zero. So we depend entirely on these graphical monitors. It's like a video game.
The Spider has a tough job. It has already cleared over 10,000 tons of rock and clay from the seabed.
We have now dredged all the steepest part of the whole Ormen Lange area, ready to lay the pipelines. It's been a lot of work in a very short time. But now we are nearly finished, so now I'm very pleased.
Nyhammer. An enormous building site the size of 120 soccer fields is being constructed on the Norwegian coast. When complete, it'll process 70 million cubic meters of raw gas every day. The gas has to flow continuously, but at such huge depths, sea temperatures can drop below zero. That could freeze the gas, clog the template, and stop the gas flow to shore. The solution lies inside these tanks.
In these tanks we have 30 million liters of antifreeze liquid. The antifreeze liquid, of course, will be to prevent the well stream to freeze on the way from the subsea production tree and up to the onshore terminal.
The finished factory will need over 300 kilometers of pipe and more than 15,000 valves to clean and dry the gas. This is where the gas will arrive and depart. 2 pipes coming in from the Ormen Lange field, 1 going out to Britain. The gas will spend just 10 minutes in the process plant at Nyhammer before heading out on a 2-day trip to Britain. Work isn't just taking place above ground. Beneath the surface, a network of caves is being carved out of solid rock. When complete, these chambers will be vast holding tanks for the light oil that comes off with the gas. The method of construction: explosives. The explosives team is setting the next blast to obliterate the chunk of rock they're standing on and level it with the cavern floor below. Stage 1, charging boreholes. Stage 2, carefully connecting the detonation system. Stage 3, evacuation. Underground explosions create extremely dangerous shock waves. Only key personnel can remain in the cavern. The chief blaster arrives on the cavern floor in an evacuation vehicle. He carries carefully mapped detonation coordinates. And oh yes, in his pocket, he has a box of matches.
Three minutes after it's lit the fuse. So then the car better work.
As the multiple charges explode, over 5,000 tons of solid rock disintegrates. Throughout the caves, the pressure wave creates pulses of fog. As everything settles, the chief blaster gives the okay, and the clear-up begins.
They come back with their heavy machinery and they start mucking up the rock, and they continue that for approximately 20 hours. And then they start to do it all over again. How many blasts left? Probably around 6-7 for this bench that we're blasting now, and then we have some smaller stuff left to do later. We hope to be finished in 1 or 2 months with this cavern.
It's noisy, dirty work, and it's going on round the clock. Deadlines have to be met if they are going to be ready for the gas. Back at the template, a storm has blown up overnight. In the morning, sea conditions are even worse. With fierce gales, lashing rain, and wild seas, the template is moved away from the Thialf. Meteorologist Paul Hutchin is starting to feel the pressure.
Well, the sort of conditions they're looking for to do the lift is no more than sort of moderate or fresh winds. They don't want any strong winds at all for the operation. They also would be looking for moderate seas, certainly not rough seas. So we're looking at seas where you've not got very much white water. We've just reached 34 knots, and that's gale force. So it's quite windy, and as you can see, it's very rough seas as well. So it's yes, quite spectacular conditions at the moment, especially for August.
We have a limitation in wave height because we don't want the barge to move too much. If the barge hits the skirts before we manage to lift it clear, that would be an awkward situation. In addition, the same wave criteria is there to prevent the crane vessel to move too much, because then we get too much loads in the slings. So it's a number of things that can really knock us out.
Lowering the $26 million template is dependent on a $1,000 ball that will help Paul predict something called the significant wave.
The significant wave is a statistically derived wave, so it's not a wave you can actually see, but it's a wave that would be most likely to be observed, and that's what we forecast. At the moment, as I say, we've got about 2.8, almost 3 metres of significant wave. We're looking for a lot less than that, and at crane level we're up to 45 knots of wind, and we're looking for a lot less than that as well to do the job. So it's far too wild at the moment.
morning, gentlemen and ladies. Paul, can we start with the weather forecast, please?
Well, we're in a very unsettled spell of weather just now, as we all know. The significant wave, it's around about 2.4, 2.5 metres at the moment, and we do expect it to gradually decay. But I think by the time we get through into the late morning tomorrow, the significant wave, I think, will pick up above 2 metres.
The forecast means the template installation could start this afternoon. A buzz goes round the ship. But with the weather changing by the minute, there may not be enough time to complete the lowering.
Based on the weather forecast, we have a small chance. It's not a big period for this evening, this night, and early tomorrow morning. The other thing which is not very promising, then there isn't a second gap for a long time. The weather forecast, it looks completely different than the forecast which you gave us yesterday. Can you explain that? Because yesterday you gave us a weather forecast which was going through the weekend to very good conditions.
Certainly looks like the seas are decaying a little bit quicker today, and the winds are picking up a little bit quicker tomorrow. Unfortunately, forecasts do change. The fact is the trough that's pushing across through the course of Friday is deeper, and therefore there's more wind associated with it. It's unfortunate, but that's the reason for the change in story.
Typical Norwegian summer.
With the possibility of the lift happening this afternoon, it's just a matter of waiting for the next forecast. But it isn't good news.
I've just had to tell the guys that it looks like the weather window we were hoping for tonight and tomorrow is not there anymore. Well, certainly not the length they want anyway. So instead of having our 20 or 24-hour weather window, it's now down to sort of 12 hours. So it's just not enough really to perform the lift. You know, weather forecasting, it's a tricky business, and occasionally forecasts go wrong, and you have to go down and inform the client. It's not nice, but unfortunately it's part of the job.
The only thing we now need is the right weather window to start. Unfortunately, the weather will come up tomorrow morning and pretty strong as well. So that means that we just have to wait.
With the summer nearly over, the longer they wait, the fewer the chances of installing the template. Hiring out at $500,000 a day, the Thialf sits idle. At the Ormen Lange gas field, weatherman Paul has forecast rough conditions for the next few days. Delays are causing great concern. The pipe is moving ever closer, and the template needs to start its journey to the bottom of the ocean soon. The Ormen Lange field will supply the UK with gas for the next 40 years. But it's been far longer in the making. "65 million years ago, Norway's craggy landscape was forming. Rivers were eroding the rock and washing it out to sea. There, it was squashed down into solid sandstone, a reservoir for trapping gas. By looking at samples of the sandstone, geologists created a picture of the prehistoric seabed.
Quite high. Some of those are up to pebble size, which is amazing to see here.
This is actually very interesting because this pebble here is rounded, so that may have been in the shore face on an ancient shoreline 65 million years ago.
The gas has been here since dinosaurs roamed the planet. It was formed out of the decaying remains of dead sea creatures.
The gas in Ormen Lange formed in rocks of Jurassic age. That is when the dinosaurs lived on Earth. And it moved into the much younger rocks, the sandstone unit, the reservoir unit in Ormen Lange, maybe as late as 10 million years ago. Yeah. But it's interesting to look at the composition of the class because they may tell us something about the source area.
Yeah.
The gas is actually trapped in open space between individual sand grains. So it's not a big hole. It's not a big cavern. It's actually a millimeter scale pore space, porosity as we call it, in between individual sand grains. The sandstone itself is very high quality sandstone, which is very typical of the Ormen sandstone. The special thing about the sandstone in Ormen is that it's very high quality. And as this sample shows, it has extremely high porosity. You can demonstrate the porosity by blowing into the sandstone. And a lot of the air that comes out of my mouth goes directly into the sandstone because there is more than 30% of open space in here. So it's a very high quality rock. It's one of the best reservoir rocks that we have on the Norwegian shelf. So it's very well suited for containing the gas in Ormen.
With such a vast ocean to choose from, how did they know where the gas was? The story began many years ago. It was 1984. A research ship was out surveying the Norwegian Sea, scanning the ocean floor. They produced thousands of meters of information that ended up in a storeroom. It remained there gathering dust for the next 6 years, until the oil company Hydro dusted them down and made an amazing discovery.
I gave Terje Enoksen, who was my most experienced geophysicist, the task of doing some reconnaissance work on seismic lines in the deeper part of the basin. A few days later, he came into my office one late night, very enthusiastic. He had been discovering some very interesting stuff on these data. It took me like 5 minutes to get equally enthusiastic because we both saw that this looked very promising. The most important observations he made was these tiny black spots here called flat spots. And those are actually indications of hydrocarbon-water contact. And we thought it was gas.
They knew this 2-centimeter trace was an incredible find. Buried in reams of identical data, it could be priceless.
So what happened next in that was that I took contact with the top manager present, and by the end I was convinced and said, okay, you have all the funds you asked for, but just keep this secret. Anyone who is leaking information will get sacked.
A handful of trusted employees were assembled to dig a little deeper. Sworn to secrecy, the chosen few began to delve the depths in a multi-billion-dollar quest.
It was an ordinary day at work, and I remember Kjell came to me and he said, you have to come into my office, I have something to show you. And he closed the door and he said, this is top secret. If you tell anything about it to anybody, it will be very serious.
We knew this could be huge. This could be one of the biggest gas fields in the North Sea. That was realized almost immediately by the team.
The only way to get a physical proof of gas or oil being present is drilling an exploration well. And to drill an exploration well, you need to have a license. And our goal now was to get the license, get the operatorship, and then eventually you drill an exploration well.
Summer '97, we started drilling the field, and of course now that was the moment of truth approaching, and approaching rather fast. When you got the rig on location first, starting to drill, it was anxiousness because all this work, everything had to go right.
Of course, we've been certain before, and it hasn't worked, so there's always a great excitement when we drill exploration wells.
What we're waiting for once we approach the reservoir was what we call a drill break. Easier to drill sand than shale, and you can feel it all the way up to the rig in the way the drilling equipment behaves. So I think it was 25th of August that we got a negative drill break. So it was kaboom, down, And then 2 meters below, positive drill break, we had sand on deck. Then we knew that all the work and predictions John had done was just spot on.
It was really huge.
We were pretty sure we found the second largest gas field on the Norwegian shelf. That's what we felt the well had proved.
I guess it's more than 300 billion cubic meters of gas.
A huge find on any scale worldwide.
Huge it may be, but getting it out from below the hostile ocean floor is causing problems. The LB-200 pipe-laying ship has a matter of weeks to meet its deadline. It's racing northwards towards the template at a staggering 4 kilometers a day. The LB-200 has to keep moving forward. To do that, it uses an unusual form of propulsion.
Kedging. K-E-D-G-E. It means to move by anchors. So that's what we're doing. We're crabbing along.
Instead of moving under its own steam, it pulls on 14 anchors spread out around it. The anchors are moved forward by special tugboats.
Current position is here, and the desired position will be the little blue dot. These are the stern anchors here, like our main sterns, our 7s. I'll be repositioning them approximately 700 meters nearer to the barge, one at a time.
But in choppy seas, the boats can't pick up the anchors safely. If it becomes too dangerous, the barge will come to a standstill in the middle of the ocean. If the barge is stationary for too long, the pipe will have to be sealed and dropped to the seabed. This is a timely, expensive, and dangerous operation.
The boats are going to go look at their anchor buoys to see if it's possible to catch them. If their men can safely connect to the anchor buoys, they'll go to work. If their crewmen on deck determine it's too dangerous, they won't catch them. Leader 200.
On the leader?
Yes, sir. When you get over there, before you go to the starboard 6, go to starboard 7 and see if you can grab the midline buoy and drag it back out away from the barge away.
Okay, yeah, I'll give it a try, but the swell is still 4 or 5 meters here. The biggest ones are close to 5, I believe, but we'll give it a try.
Roger that, Captain. Just have a look at it. If you can, we will. If you can't, we won't.
Yeah, no problem. I'll have a look at it.
Roger that.
Unfortunately, the sea is too rough, and the LB-200 grinds to a halt.
Today is a pretty miserable day because of the weather. We're in a slow lay period because it's a little bit too rough for the anchor handlers to move the anchors. Safety is the #1 goal out here. We don't want to get anybody hurt. We want everybody to go home the same way they arrived. So, yeah, it's just a little bit too unsafe for the guys to move the anchors. We will fall behind, but now it's us against Mother Nature.
Inside, the pipe comes to a standstill. The crew can only wait for calmer conditions to return. It's a costly delay, and the stormy seas are doing the pipe no good at all. It might be 1-inch steel, but the pipe still bends. It curves twice on the way down, in an unsupported S shape. If the sea is rough, the bends could become overstressed, causing damage to the structure of the pipeline.
When we start to get above a 7-meter swell, you start getting to fatigue factors of the pipe, which damages the concrete coating surface of it. So at that time, it's time to put the pipe on the bottom. Otherwise, you're going to have to cut out everything that you've laid that day.
By 8 p.m., the weather's getting worse. The pipe-laying ship is still stationary in the middle of the North Sea, and Jimmy Peacock's schedule is in danger. It's getting close to the time he will need to consider dropping the pipe off the ship. But there's no way he wants to do that.
Today's target, we're way off. We're laying probably 6 double joints of pipe today. Not so good at all. But it's better than having to lay the pipe down. When the weather does break, we got the pipe up, we're ready to roll. So as soon as the weather breaks, we can take off and start laying pipe.
Back at the gas field, the weather is getting worse. Lowering the template now would be just too dangerous. While they wait for a break in the weather, Jim Gelpy, navigator of the remote-controlled subs, uses the time to prepare for the template installation. The subs will track the progress of the template on its journey to the bottom of the sea. It will then become the eyes of the engineers as they position and secure the template to the seabed.
At this point in time, we can dive. We're just waiting for the sea state to come down so that they can launch the template and get it through the water column in a safe manner. This is where we control the ROV from. Basically, this is the pilot's chair and the navigator's chair is over there. We have various cameras. The black box records the video and all the pertinent data from the sub.
Okay, that's almost over there. That's it for the front side.
Rob, is anybody outside?
I'll head outside, make sure it's all clear.
Alright.
All clear on ROV deck.
The vehicle just got out of the water not too long ago, so it's just residual water drops on there. There's the manipulator. There's our manipulator. We also have our power monitoring, ground fault resistance. Oh, Rob, you're a scholar and a gentleman. He's cleaned it up. I mean, the team likes to be working. It's our job and we enjoy our job. I have some friends that really think I have the coolest job in the whole world.
Jim and his team are relaxed about the disruption to the schedule, but below deck, head chef Bertus Telpalars is getting very concerned about the delay. With over 350 hungry mouths to feed, 24 hours a day, he is running out of food.
We thought we would be here only for a few days, but it's going to be longer and longer, and we only have provisions for about three more weeks, and that's it. Then we are empty completely.
With supplies running short, Bertus has taken drastic steps. He is staggering the meals. 120 hungry souls wait to be released from behind closed doors.
We have 4 settings a day, every 6 hours one. And we have 3 main courses, 24 hours sleep. Midnight we have breakfast, have bacon and eggs, English breakfast with it. And the same at 5:30 in the morning.
Harry Paulson is the provisions manager. When he put in his food order before the Thialf left Rotterdam, he didn't account for the weather delays.
Now it's quite empty because we are already 3 weeks on the sea now. When we are in Rotterdam, we're going to store this totally full.
Harry needs the biggest shopping trolley in the world when he goes to the supermarket.
It's about 80,000 kilo of meat we use, and 25,000 kilo of fish. So that's quite a lot, I guess.
What is this? Fish.
Of course, we just have to wait. It's not such a surprise when there is no action. It's not that much fun, and with wives and kids at home, you'd like to get home as fast as possible. On the other hand, this is an operation that most of us have been waiting for a long time, so therefore we are fairly tolerant.
Yes, please.
With time running out and the weather getting steadily worse, there's a chance the template will have to return to shore. Will the team's hard work be rewarded, or will the whole operation be thrown into chaos? The 2 machines brought in to build the biggest underwater pipeline in the world might be big, but they've been tamed by bad weather. Thankfully, at the LB200, conditions have taken a turn for the better, and it's on the move once again.
Going back to normal lake. The weather is broke enough that the anchor tugs are able to catch the anchor buoys and start moving the anchors for us. Now we're going back into production and continue laying the pipeline. We'll be back into full swing within the next hour or so, and we'll just keep laying pipe until the next weather front comes through, making as much ground as we possibly can. It's always good to get back going to work, get everybody back in the mode of working again. It's good news for everybody.
Much further north, the weather delays have held up the template installation nearly a week. But at last, conditions have improved a little, and the engineers decide to go for it.
Once we have the right weather, then we bring the barge into the stern of the vessel. That's under the two big cranes. The rigging is prepared and laid out on the top of the template. We hook up, and once that's done, it's a lift-off.
Lifting off the barge is one of the riskiest parts of the installation. The template must be hoisted up quickly to prevent a collision. When lifted successfully, its journey begins. A journey that will last several hours. A journey to the bottom of the ocean.
Moving the vessel around, we get it in the right position, and then we slowly lower it into the seabed.
It's a tense moment as the team from Hydro gathers to watch the final positioning. It needs to be accurate to within 2 meters.
Even after the template is landed, there's still lots of activity going on. The ROV people eagerly working to close hatches and clean up, remove stuff, and a number of activities.
12.5 hours after starting, the template is securely positioned on the seabed.
We have had a lot of struggling with the weather. Finally we got exactly the right weather, and the operation was performed very safe. Everything went according to procedures, and the structure is perfect on the seabed right now. So yeah, I'm very happy and very relieved.
This operation has been a major step towards realizing one of the world's biggest building projects. Despite the horrendous weather conditions, the LB200 managed to complete the southern half of the pipeline on schedule. Moving slowly but steadily, it reached its underwater target with time to spare. The hard work of thousands of men have kept the project bang on schedule for switch on. That's when the gas will eventually start to flow from Norway to England along the world's longest underwater pipeline.